Ethan Rowe never heard the footsteps. One second, he was sprawled on his couch, scrolling through his phone, a half-empty beer sweating on the table beside him. The next, his apartment door creaked open and a figure stepped inside. No knock, no warning. Just the slow, deliberate sound of the lock clicking shut from the inside. The stranger didn't speak. They stood just inside the doorway, face swallowed by shadow, holding a phone whose screen glowed like a miniature spotlight. And on that screen, playing in crisp, undeniable detail, was his video, the one he thought he'd buried behind burner accounts, masked usernames and late-night uploads, the one he had convinced himself no one could trace back to him. A familiar voice sliced through the silence. Miss me? It wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. It was worse, calm, controlled. The kind of calm you only hear from someone who's already decided how this ends. Ethan's smirk twitched into something closer to confusion. What the hell is this? The figure took a step forward. The dim light caught their eyes, cold, unblinking. The phone's tiny speaker let out faint audio, laughter, and something more intimate. Ethan's jaw clenched. His color drained. Who? He began, but his voice cracked on the word. The stranger just kept walking. 12 hours earlier, Ethan had been living his best life. Morning sunlight crept through his blinds while he lounged in bed, thumbs dancing over his phone screen. Notifications poured in, likes, shares, DMs from strangers he'd never meet. People were talking, laughing, picking sides in a drama they thought they understood. A private video, intimate enough to ruin a person's life, had exploded online overnight. It was everywhere. Twitter threads, Reddit posts, TikTok reaction videos. The woman in it had become an unwilling celebrity in the worst possible way. Ethan wasn't exactly taking credit for the leak, but he also wasn't shoving anyone toward the truth. In his head, he'd done nothing wrong. Everyone shared things. Everyone laughed. She'd survive. By noon, he'd posted a photo of his beer at the Rusty Tap, tagged with a smug caption. Some people can't take a joke. Across town, someone saw that post. They didn't laugh. They didn't scroll. They stared. And then they started moving. The day had started differently for her. Her phone was a grenade, buzzing nonstop with texts, calls, and notifications until the battery nearly died. Every ping was another jab. Some from friends asking if it was true, some from strangers calling her names she wouldn't repeat, and plenty from people she'd never met offering things she didn't want. By breakfast, her name was trending. By lunch, her boss had suggested some personal time. By dinner, her mother stopped answering her calls. She'd tried the police. That was a joke. Ma'am, once it's online, there's nothing we can do. Ma'am, this is a civil matter. Translation, you're on your own. She wasn't crying. She wasn't hiding. She was planning. That night, she became invisible. Her laptop screen glowed as she pieced together a trail. Ethan never thought anyone would follow. Usernames tied to old emails, check-ins to bars and restaurants, IP addresses bouncing around but always circling back to one place. His apartment in a peeling brick complex that smelled faintly of cigarette smoke and cheap cleaner. Every clue was a drop of gasoline on an already burning fire. The next day, she dressed to disappear. Jeans, a plain sweater, sunglasses, hair pulled back. Neutral, forgettable. At 5:42 p.m., she parked a block away and waited. Ethan came home carrying a bag of takeout, scrolling his phone as he climbed the stairs, grinning at whatever joke he'd just read. He didn't look up. He didn't notice the eyes watching him. 15 minutes later, the hallway outside his door was empty. And then it wasn't. Now, in his apartment, Ethan was starting to understand. The figure with the phone took another step forward. You really thought no one would find out? They asked softly. Ethan swallowed hard. Look, it was a joke. Just... The rest of his sentence died in the air. The door stayed shut. The hallway stayed silent. And behind that door, something happened that no one on the outside would hear. At 9:13 the next morning, the landlord used his master key to chase down late rent. The apartment smelled stale. The blinds were half drawn. A coffee table lay on its side like it had been shoved out of the way. Ethan was slumped on the couch, head tilted, eyes open but glassy. His phone was still in his hand. On the screen, paused mid-frame, was a smiling woman. Her name wasn't in the police report yet, but soon everyone would know it. And once they did, they wouldn't be able to forget. The police didn't need long to figure out Ethan Rowe had enemies. What they needed and didn't have was proof. Detective Marla Vance stood in the center of Ethan's living room, her eyes bouncing from the toppled coffee table to the phone in his stiff hand. She didn't bother touching it yet. That paused image, a woman's smile, was burned into her brain already. "You think she's the one who leaked it?" her partner asked. Vance shook her head. "No, I think he leaked it, and she's the reason he's dead." The first clue came from the neighbors. One, an elderly woman with a floral housecoat and binocular-level memory, swore she'd seen a slim figure in a sweater slip into Ethan's apartment around 6 the previous night. Another, a guy in his 20s, said he'd heard a door shut and quiet talking. No shouting. No fighting. Just talking, then silence. No one saw the visitor leave. Back at the precinct, Vance pulled up Ethan's social media. It was a landfill of smug captions, inside jokes, and thinly veiled jabs at an unnamed woman. The timestamps told a story, one that ended abruptly the night before. She found the viral video within minutes. The comments were brutal, but buried between them were clues. Usernames defending the woman, pushing back, warning Ethan. And one of those usernames linked to a burner email, which linked to a credit card, which linked to Claire Hensley. Claire's address was less than 3 miles from Ethan's. By noon, Vance and her partner were at her door. She answered like she'd been expecting them. Jeans, hoodie, hair pulled back. No makeup. Her eyes were calm, almost too calm. The kind of calm you find in people who have nothing left to lose. "We'd like to ask you some questions about Ethan Rowe," Vance said. Claire's lips twitched into something between a smile and a smirk. "I figured you would." In the interrogation room, Claire didn't pace, didn't fidget. She sat perfectly still, hands folded, gaze steady. "You knew Ethan," Vance started. "Knew him," Claire corrected. Past tense. "You two had history?" Claire's jaw flexed. "If that's what you want to call it." They circled the obvious for 15 minutes before. Vance slid a photo across the table. Ethan, on the couch, phone in hand, her face frozen on the screen. Claire stared at it for a long moment. "That's a nice picture of me," she said. Vance leaned in. "You were there." "We have a witness who saw you go in." Claire tilted her head. "Do you also have a witness who saw me leave?" The thing about Claire was she wasn't stupid. She knew without physical evidence, no fingerprints, no weapon, no camera footage, they couldn't hold her. After 2 hours, they let her walk. That night, Claire posted one last thing to her social media. No caption. Just a black square. Her friends didn't get it. The detectives did. 2 days later, a hiker found her car abandoned near the edge of Brookhaven Gorge, keys still in the ignition. The search lasted less than an hour before they spotted her, half submerged at the base of the cliff. The coroner's report was short. Cause of death, blunt force trauma from the fall. But the note left in the driver's seat said more than the autopsy ever could. When the world decides you're a joke, there's only one punchline left. The internet that had roasted her was suddenly full of memorial posts. The same people who had mocked her now wore halos of hindsight, swearing they'd always supported her. Ethan's death remained officially unsolved. Claire's was ruled a suicide, but Detective Vance knew better. Sometimes justice doesn't look like a courtroom. Sometimes it's just 2 people in a room, a locked door, and a truth only they'll ever know. If you think you know how far someone will go when the internet turns on them, think again. Stories like this happen more often than you'd believe, and I've got plenty more to tell. So if you were hooked till the very last second, do me one favor, hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next twist. Tap the like button to let me know you want more stories like this, and if you've got theories about what really happened behind Ethan's door, drop them in the comments. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for what's coming next.